Welcome to the Law and Crime Trial Network. My name is Bob Bianchi. I'll be taking it with you for the next 3 hours as we make our way through today's trial news. Our focus will be on a fascinating case out there in Tallahassee, Florida, for the trial of yet another defendant in the Dan Markel murder saga. This time, Charlie Adelson is seeing his day in court for his alleged role in the murder of the Florida State law professor. Adelson is the victim's ex-brother-in-law and the fourth person charged in the case. The state believes that Adelson conspired to kill Markel to end a heated custody battle between him and his sister. The trigger man, Sigfredo Garcia, and his co-defendant, Catherine Magbanwa, had been tried and both have been convicted. And it doesn't end there. So clearly there's a lot of moving parts to the saga of this case. And I can tell you for an absolute certainty, no questions, hands down, the best person that can break this really strange and circuitous murder case is our very own Law and Crime Network's producer, Cathy Russon. Cathy, thanks for joining us. You know, I listened to you talk about this case, the passion you have about the case, like you do all cases, but I'm always uber impressed that you know all these little nooks and crannies and ins and outs. So take it away. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, Bob, I've been following this case from the very beginning, which was 2014. We've covered the trials that came before this, and it is a tangled web. So I thought I would just come on and give just kind of a brief overview of the players and their involvement in this case. So in 2013, Dan Markel and Wendi Adelson Markel were going through a bitter custody dispute. They'd already been divorced, but now they have two boys. Wendi wanted to move closer to her parents and further away from Dan, and Dan was not having that. And so they were in a custody dispute. Wendi's parents, Donna and Harvey Adelson, are very involved in their daughter's life, and so was her brother, Charlie Adelson. And Donna Adelson wanted Wendi and the boys to move so they could be next to them. Also during this custody dispute, Dan says that Donna was disparaging him to his boys, and so he had filed a motion to keep Donna, the grandma, away from the boys. Prosecutors say this infuriated her, and the Adelson family started to plot to get rid of Dan. That's the accusation here.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
Yeah. So this is how it's. Charlie Adelson has a girlfriend named Catherine Magbanwa. Catherine has children with a man named Sigfredo Garcia. Garcia has a childhood friend who's a big leader in the Latin Kings gang named Luis Rivera. And the prosecution's theory is Charlie Adelson enlisted Catherine Magbanwa to find him a hitman to get rid of his ex-brother-in-law, Dan Markel. So his sister could just have the kids, the family would all be happy, she could move. And that's how this web goes. We do know now the convicted trigger man is Sigfredo Garcia. He's been convicted of first-degree murder and is serving life without prison. He did avoid the death penalty. Luis Garcia flipped on everybody at the beginning, took a plea, and testified and said he was with Garcia. They followed Dan around, went into his home. When he pulled in the garage, Sigfredo got out, shot him twice, and killed him. Catherine Magbanwa was originally tried with Garcia together, and the jury hung on her. She had a retrial, and now she's been convicted, and she's serving life without prison. All these years go by, and everyone's wondering, will anyone in the Adelson family ever be charged? And then boom, an indictment comes down for Charlie Adelson in 2022. And that's where we are now. We're at Charlie's trial. Today is day one. They say he's the mastermind, and he's funded and plotted this entire thing to get rid of Dan Markel. No one else in the Adelson family has been charged. Very interesting to keep in mind the witnesses that we expect to hear from. Luis Rivera, he already testified in the first two. This is the guy that was involved. He will testify again. Catherine Magbanwa testified at both her trials. She's on the state's witness list. But here's what I'm very interested in. Sigfredo Garcia did not testify in his trial, and we have never heard from him. He is on the witness list, and we hear he has been transferred from prison to the local jail. So we expect for the first time to hear from Sigfredo. I don't know what he hopes to gain from this, but that's interesting. Wendi Adelson, the center of all of this, testified in both the other trials. She says she didn't know anything, she doesn't know anything, and she's on the witness list to testify again. Who is not on the witness list and who will be testifying is the Adelson parents, Harvey and Donna. The defense had them on the witness list. They have never given a deposition, and they've never been interviewed. They never testified. And because they put them on the witness list, the prosecution said, "Judge, you have to let us go talk to them before trial." And the judge ordered that the Adelsons had to speak to the prosecution. So the defense took them off the witness list. So still, they have never been spoken to. The prosecution has not been able to depose those grandparents, but they will not be testifying.
Cathy, you know, this case, I saw the graphic that Law&Crime had up on the screen before with all the individuals. It reminds me of a complex RICO case where you're literally putting the relationships of the people, because it's going to be confusing here. So Wendi Adelson, and correct me if I'm wrong, and let's educate the audience a little bit more so we understand. She's at the center, like you said, but she has not been charged. She was the former wife that had a relationship with the victim in the case, and there was the custody battle between him. Magbanwa, as I understand it, Cathy, worked with Adelson and actually had a romantic relationship with Adelson. And the government's theory of the case is that Magbanwa, who also had a relationship with another co-defendant, solicited the gang guy to enter into this conspiracy to kill the victim in the case in order to assist Wendi Adelson. I mean, how much jeopardy could she be in? And when she testifies, is it typically under a grant of immunity, if you know?
We do not think Wendy's been given immunity. So it is, yes, that is the tangled web that Catherine Magbanwa was dating dentist Charlie Adelson and working for the practice. I say that because in the first two trials, we learned that she really didn't do any work, but she was kind of on the payroll. She was dating Charlie. She has children with Sigfrido Garcia, and they had an on-again, off-again relationship. Sigfrido still very much loved her. That came out in all the trials. He was kind of obsessed with her still, and he was angry she was dating Charlie Adelson. This brings me, and Sigfrido has a childhood friend, Luis Rivera, who's a gang member. This brings us to what the defense is that we heard today in the defense opening statement. They say Sigfrido Garcia hated Charlie Adelson. Catherine Magbanwa knew Charlie had a ton of money. He had been working a lot. He was a periodontist. He had a lot of money, and he was getting ready to possibly sell his practice for $1 million. Defense is saying Catherine Magbanwa knew that he was coming into all this money and had money, and she got with Sigfrido to off Dan to frame Charlie and then tell Charlie, one of your family members will be next if you don't give us money. That's the defense story that came out today.
Okay, so Cathy, also the arrest didn't occur here. Let's talk to our audience about this because I find it so fascinating. Until April 18th of 2022, all those years later. Talk to us about the Dolce Vita recording of undercover agents and what ultimately led prosecutors to have the evidence they felt that they could finally charge Charles Adelson.
So this is what they're considering the smoking gun in the case, is the Dolce Vita is a restaurant in Florida, the Dolce Vita recording. We heard about it over and over again in the other trials. The problem is, let me back up a little bit. Agents went undercover and they decided to do what they call the bump. And this is where they do something to a suspect to then hopefully they'll get them talking and they can wiretap them. Then hopefully they talk to other suspects. They walked up to Donna Adelson, the grandma, handed her a article about Dan Markel's murder, and on it wrote $5,000 and a phone number. She then gets on the phone with Charlie and kind of in code says the TV is now $5,000 and this guy gave me this paper and we need to talk in person. Then it goes on, Charlie calls the number on the paper and the undercover agent's like, dude, you haven't taken care of my boys. They need more money. You never took care of them. And Charlie doesn't say, what are you talking about? He says, let me get back to you. So we have that recording. Charlie then meets with Catherine Magbanwa at the restaurant and agents are at a table next to them recording. But the audio is horrible and it's so loud in the restaurant. They had not been able to enhance it. It's very difficult to make what's going on. So they finally, after all these trials and all this time, get a better expert to enhance this audio. And that's when they indicted him. So the audio of that is what they consider the smoking gun. In there, it's still not great audio, but he is saying things to Catherine Magbanua like, look, nobody talks, we have no problem. If I was worried, we would already be on a plane. And then everything else is sort of code. Now, the FBI and the agents put together a transcript to this, or it might have been the state's attorney's office. The judge will not allow the transcript in. So the jurors are only going to have the audio, and they're going to have to make it out themselves. And that is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting question, legal question I want to ask my awesome panel of guests today. But Cathy Russon, executive producer at the Law and Crime Trial Network, always killing it. Cathy, thank you so much. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break here in the Law and Crime. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.